On a morning that began like any other, the studio was alive with its usual hum. Cameras rolling, lights shining bright, and scripted conversation flowing seamlessly. Yet beneath that rhythm, something subtle had shifted. Mark Consuelos, long admired for his composure, charm, and effortless confidence, carried a quiet weight that no one had seen before. As the show unfolded, what was meant to be a routine broadcast became something extraordinary, a moment of human truth that transcended the script. Viewers, accustomed to polished energy and seamless performance, suddenly witnessed the slow emergence of vulnerability, a glimpse of the man behind the persona. The contrast between the familiar cadence of live television and the raw honesty that surfaced made the moment resonate far beyond the studio walls. The public image of strength. For years, Mark had been known as the epitome of balance. Actor, television host, husband, father, and steady presence. Audiences admired his energy, wit, and reliability, often imagining that his confidence came effortlessly. Yet that public image carried quiet expectations. Being seen as strong, capable, and unflappable often leaves little room to admit fatigue, fear, or uncertainty. Behind the smiles and charm, there had been years of sustaining a persona that rarely allowed for rest or self-reflection. This moment on air didn't shatter that image. Rather, it deepened it, revealing the honesty, humility, and courage that underpin true resilience. It reminded everyone that the people we admire most are human, with their own unseen struggles. When the mask began to slip, as conversation progressed, subtle changes became apparent. Mark's voice softened, pauses lengthened, and emotions surfaced quietly in his eyes. There was no dramatic breakdown, only a slow, poignant release of feelings long held inside. Viewers felt the shift instinctively because it was authentic, unmanufactured, and deeply human. This was vulnerability in motion, not performance. A reminder that endurance doesn't always mean absence of struggle. Mark had been strong for so long that forgetting how to pause, how to admit difficulty, had become almost natural. Watching him navigate that moment revealed the quiet heroism in allowing oneself to be truly seen. The pressure behind the scenes. What Mark revealed was not about a single crisis, but about accumulation. The daily responsibility of showing up, performing energy, maintaining focus, and carrying the expectations of family, colleagues, and an audience that rarely stops to wonder what lies beneath the surface. That kind of pressure, invisible to outsiders, can quietly erode emotional and mental energy. Mark's admission illustrated something universal. So many people silently push through, concealing exhaustion behind smiles, humor, and competence. His openness reminded viewers that acknowledging limits does not diminish value or achievement. It simply affirms humanity. The weight of silence. One of the most compelling truths Mark shared was his difficulty in asking for help. He, like many, had long equated strength with silence, believing that vulnerability would burden others or signal weakness. This belief kept him moving forward, but it also isolated him in subtle ways. Naming the struggle aloud, in front of colleagues and an audience, broke that cycle. In doing so, he demonstrated that strength is not denial, and courage is not silence. Vulnerability is not a flaw, but a profound act of self-respect and relational honesty. This realization resonated widely, offering a model for how people can begin to unburden themselves in compassionate, constructive ways. A moment that belonged to everyone. As the broadcast aired, social media and viewer reactions made it clear that this moment extended beyond celebrity. People connected with the honesty, seeing reflections of their own exhaustion, pressures, and private struggles. Admiration shifted from applause for composure to gratitude for transparency. Mark's willingness to let the audience witness his humanity offered permission for others to acknowledge their own challenges. Emotional fatigue, quiet anxiety, or unspoken stress suddenly felt less isolating. The broadcast became a shared experience, a reminder that vulnerability is not shameful, and that even those who seem unshakable carry unseen burdens. Redefining strength and healing. In the days that followed, Mark continued the conversation in more intentional ways. He spoke about mental health, therapy, and the importance of recognizing limits, not as a sign of weakness, but as a step toward sustainable strength. Healing, he acknowledged, is not linear, and difficult days remain. Yet the difference now is shared awareness and support. By openly redefining strength as courage to seek help, rest, and be honest, he reframed public and personal notions of what it means to thrive. His vulnerability offered an invitation to others to reconsider how they measure success, reminding people that true resilience incorporates self-care, honesty, and reflection. Cultural resonance and broader impact. Looking back, the broadcast marked more than a personal turning point. It shifted cultural expectations surrounding public figures, emotional honesty, and masculinity. By allowing vulnerability to coexist with dignity, Mark demonstrated that acknowledging struggle does not diminish accomplishment. It enhances relatability and connection. The moment challenged the notion that strength requires perfection and instead celebrated authenticity. Viewers saw that moments of openness could foster understanding, empathy, and hope, offering reassurance to anyone who has silently carried burdens. His experience became a reminder that shared humanity is more powerful than curated appearances. A model of courage and compassion. Ultimately, the story of that broadcast illustrates the power of choosing honesty over performance. Mark's vulnerability showed that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it and share it. Kelly's support, both privately and publicly, highlighted that compassion strengthens relationships and models empathy for others. Together, their interaction underscored how authenticity can transform not only personal lives, but also public discourse. By showing up as their real selves, they encouraged viewers to do the same in their own relationships, workplaces, and communities. A moment that continues to inspire. Even now, the memory of that day carries significance. It is no longer simply a moment on television. It has become a touchstone for conversations about balance, self-care, and emotional honesty. The message is clear. Strength is multidimensional. Resilience includes rest. And vulnerability is a form of empowerment. Mark's choice to speak openly reminded everyone that real courage often begins quietly, with words that acknowledge truth rather than hide it. By stepping into authenticity, he transformed not just his own experience, but the cultural conversation about what it means to live fully, honestly, and with emotional presence. Living beyond performance. The broadcast reminds us that life is more than appearances. Even those who seem consistently strong face internal struggles, and the decision to share them can create profound connection. For Mark, Kelly, and the people watching, it became a moment of shared humanity. It reaffirmed that relationships, work, and self-perception are strengthened, not diminished, when honesty is chosen. The act of showing vulnerability publicly, while deeply personal, rippled outward as inspiration. Audiences were reminded that openness is courageous, that admitting limits is not failure, and that authenticity has enduring value far beyond applause or recognition. The takeaway: strength and truth. In reflecting on that broadcast, one sees how a single, unplanned moment can transform perception, understanding, and conversation. Strength is not silence. It is the willingness to be seen. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is connection. And honesty, even in the most public of spaces, can be a catalyst for healing, empathy, and cultural change. Mark's openness illuminated a path that many viewers could follow in their own lives. To embrace emotion, to communicate truthfully, and to recognize that courage often comes quietly, in moments that feel ordinary, but carry extraordinary human significance.